It's time for the Longines Chronoscope, a television journal of the important issues of the hour, brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A presentation of the Longines Whitnor Watch Company, maker of Longines, the world's most honored watch, and Whitnor, distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent, and Kenneth Crawford, National Affairs Editor of Newsweek magazine. Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
The North Pole used to be a no-man's land, but these are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airliner, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. Yet only 60 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America.
To those joining us, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you along for this next leg of the journey. Now, we're all aware of the facts of life, that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And most people have hopped aboard a similar train of thought, accepting what appears to be the fleeting nature of what we know as life. Even those who seem to live in the world of tomorrow have a tough time switching tracks. We, on the other hand, see another way. We believe in preserving the unique beauty that only Mother Nature can provide in all of its forms, from plant life to animal. And we have successfully developed the technology to do so. Technology that will allow living beings the opportunity to weather any unexpected storm. By coaxing a body into temporary stasis, we can preserve any life form as long as is necessary to repair it. So no longer will one life necessarily be a flash in time. No longer does the end need to be the end. Thanks to groundbreaking discovery and innovation, a new dawn lies in wait for all of us. Even today, in 1964, we are unable to look back through the dark mists of time and see what truly happened to the great primeval beings that ruled the earth before us. But if we break free from the mire of tired thinking, we can focus our attention and efforts on another opportunity that lies ahead. Coupled with our ability to preserve life, we have the power to produce something truly grand. By taking what remains of any life, big or small, we can extract from its core its very essence and regenerate that life to its full glory. On a smaller scale, we can utilize this technology to repair injuries, cure disease, taking the remains of that which has been grounded and empowering it to once again take flight. New applications of these technologies, from preservation to regeneration, are being hatched and tested daily by our experts. Such power would allow us to live our lives free of sickness, free of loss, free of fear. Together, we can survive any unforeseen mishaps, any unexpected turns for the worse, no matter where we stand, no matter the time, as long as we strive to make this gift a reality for all.
Also really pushing the boundaries in terms of where we're going forward with exploration. I think humans are naturally driven to do this, and this is really the beginning, I think, of human beings leaving low Earth orbit. I certainly plan on being around to see that.
The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. We only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
That's all, folks.
when so many in the media are reporting the same stories, promulgating the same narratives, relying on the same sources, even using the same phrases? I mean, think of it. There are literally thousands of legitimate news stories that could be reported in a given day, and an infinite number of ways to report them. When everybody's on the same page, it might be the result of an organized campaign.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about troubling and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is a whole, an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer and that nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry, just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off.
we have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
I think it is highly beneficial to have some 20 million Americans regularly sit in on these conferences to observe, if I may say so, the incisive, the intelligent, and the courteous qualities displayed by your Washington correspondents. Nor, finally, are these remarks intended to examine the proper degree of privacy which the press should allow to any president and his family. If, in the last few months, your White House reporters and photographers have been attending church services with regularity, that has surely done them no harm. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the president. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
And what about the, are people trying to draft you to run for president up in New Hampshire?
Well, I guess a lot of people want to see this country, it's a shame what's happening. Japan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, everybody's taking advantage of the United States. People know that if certain people are running a country, that it won't happen. I mean, when you look at Japan, not paying for the defense, we're defending Japan. We're losing billions and billions of dollars. We're fighting for AIDS help and for farmers and for this and that. And it's a shame, and the Japanese folks, who I respect greatly, but they're not treating us fairly. They're really not treating us fairly. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they're not paying us anything for the services we're rendering, and I think it's a disgrace. And I think people look at certain people, and maybe me, if I were in a position, this country, believe me, would not be ripped off like it is, and it is just being ripped off so badly by our so-called allies.
Yeah. So that's a pretty strong statement. So now, are you saying
I don't think it's strong. I think it's fair. And by the way, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese. I do a lot of business with the Japanese, and they smile about it too. They know it. The country is losing billions and billions of dollars to Japan, and we can't afford to lose. And it's a shame.
But so now, are you saying this by way of indicating that you could do it better, and you do intend to run for president at some point?
No, I'm not going to run for president.
Do you care who the next president is?
No.
Come with me.
Vote, vote, vote. Vote, vote, vote.
He arrives on his own plane. But this was perhaps Donald Trump's most celebrated arrival, when he escalated himself into the presidential race.
That was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I am a person who has great respect for people, for my family, for the people of this country, and certainly I'm not proud of it. But that was something that happened. If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action. His was what he's done to women. There's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously. 4 of them here tonight. One of the women, who is a wonderful woman, at 12 years old, was raped at 12. Her client, she represented, got him off, and she's seen laughing on 2 separate occasions, laughing at the girl who was raped. Kathy Shelton, that young woman, is here with us tonight.
The public likes you. That's the only reason that this might fly. But that means it's on you. They're all going to come after you now. And not just the mob. Politicians, journalists, cops. Anyone whose wallet's about to get lighter. Are you up to it? You better be. Because they get anything on you. And those criminals are back on the streets, followed swiftly by you and me.
Donald Trump's done. He's done. There's no question about that.
He's done.
Breaking news.
A bombshell.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
A turning point. We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
The beginning of the end.
And breaking news.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
The call for impeachment.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
The beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. Trump will resign. Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
It reminds me a lot of the last days of Nixon.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end. The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
This is unbelievable. This is remarkable. Have you ever seen anything like this?
His presidency is crippled.
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
We begin with the bombshell.
The beginning of the end?
The beginning of the end.
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 In fact, if this were a football game, we're in the third quarter. May even be the beginning of the end.
We begin tonight with the bombshell. Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
I do not think the president will serve out his term.
Resignation.
I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term.
He will not serve out his term.
No way, no how.
Breaking news.
Absolute bombshell. I think Donald Trump is in trouble.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over. It's over.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight. I expect Trump to depart.
This week will be the watershed week. Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the
Walls
closing in.
The walls
Are increasingly
Closing in on him.
tonight, the walls
Are closing in.
Today changed everything. This is the beginning
of the end. Today, the biggest
tipping point for the Trump administration.
What a historic day. The bombshells, they fell.
It's entropy and it's crumbling internally.
He's underwater. He feels the walls closing in.
Could his testimony be a turning point?
We may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
The end.
The beginning
of the end.
Another bombshell.
bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
This is a bombshell.
It is a bombshell.
I am beginning to resent the word bombshell.
There's something percolating that probably will break Monday. Do either
It's
one,
possible.
you're both smiling, do either one of you want to give the audience, well,
I'll give
a
you some
little heads up?
I'll give you some breaking news right now, Sean. Just 2 hours ago, federal prosecutors assigned to John Huber, the U.S. attorney investigating the Clintons, reached out to a whistleblower in the Clinton Foundation. The first time we've seen contact between a Clinton Foundation whistleblower and that particular federal office. That just happened tonight.
Are you talking about the one whose home was raided?
With respect to Google and Twitter and Facebook, there is a big difference. And in fact, I hear that they're holding hearings in Congress over the next couple of weeks. And I think it's a very serious problem because they're really trying to silence a very large part of this country. And those people don't want to be silenced. It's not right. It's not fair. It may not be legal. But we'll see. We just want fairness.
Do you want to regulate them more?
We're just going to see. We're just going to see. You know what we want? Not regulation. We want fairness.
And there you have it. The President of the United States this afternoon warning there may be consequences if bias is found against conservatives at tech companies like Google, Twitter, and Facebook. So we have Ashley Webster, who's been on this story throughout the day in the New York Bureau. Ashley, break it down for us.
Well, you know, the president may have a point. We know that Jack Dorsey at Twitter has admitted that his company has a liberal bias. And now we have this from Facebook. The New York Times doing a story today on a very interesting development whereby a Facebook engineer by the name of Brian Amridge posted a memo to the company's internal message board last week, and it was titled this: "We have a problem with political diversity." And he basically describes a very aggressive left-leaning culture within Facebook, saying we are a political monoculture that's intolerant of different views. Well, how intolerant? According to this engineer, it depends on your political point of view, adding that, look, we claim to welcome all perspectives, but are quick to attack, often in mobs, anyone who presents a view that appears to be in opposition to left-leaning ideology. Now, this memo goes on to claim that, look, any posters, I mean physical posters on the wall welcoming Trump supporters, are torn down. It claims that Facebook has made all lives matter a fireable offense if you talk about it. He also says diversity of opinion just does not include topics such as social justice, immigration, or equality. He goes on to say this: "We are entrusted by a great part of the world to be impartial and transparent carriers of people's stories, ideas, and commentary. Congress doesn't think we can do this. The president doesn't think we can do this. And like them or not, we deserve that criticism."
Delete. Ignore. Ignore.
Delete. Delete.
Ignore. Ignore. Delete.
Companies decide what can stay up and what must be taken down.
Delete.
Outsourcing should be disturbing to people in democratic societies.
There are tens of thousands doing this work. All of it's done in secret.
They need to be anonymous because we have a contract signed in. Ignore.
Our decisions will impact what 2 billion people are thinking.
If you commit one mistake, it could trigger war. Delete. I've seen hundreds of beheadings. Ignore. Delete. Ignore. Delete. Delete. Ignore. Delete. Delete. Ignore. Delete. Ignore. Delete.
The danger is that we might lose democracy because we're willing to give it up.
Evening, officer. I don't have to introduce myself, do I? You read the papers? It's been an election year. You've seen plenty of my picture. You know who I am and what I can do. I'm doing you, Hardigan. Cold and hard, I'm doing you. You blew my son's ear off. Blew his arm off. You even blew his nuts and his pecker off. He's in a coma right now. They say he may never come out of it. My boy. He could have been the first rock to become the president of the United States, but you went and turned him into a brain-damaged, dickless freak. Pulling that trigger make you feel powerful. Power don't come from a badge or a gun. Power comes from lying. Lying big and getting the whole damn world to play along with you. Once you got everybody agreeing with what they know in their hearts ain't true, you got them by the balls. There's what, maybe 500 people in this hospital. I could pump you full of bullets right now, and I wouldn't even be arrested. Everyone would lie for me, everyone who counts. Otherwise, all their own lies, everything that runs Sin City, it all comes tumbling down like a pack of cards.
Oh! Who is that? Who's that? Ah! Who are you? Oh, no.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
The evidence thus far suggests that in the first few minutes after death, consciousness is not annihilated. Whether it fades away afterwards, we do not know, but right after death, consciousness is not lost.
It's one of the great wonders of life. What will it be like to go to sleep and never wake up?
Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose.
You will find out, it'll pose the next question to you. What was it like to wake up after having never gone to sleep? That was when you were born.
I started getting depressed. I thought, what kind of purpose do I have to live? I mean, are you just here to live to die? I mean, is there not a purpose for me? Is there not a purpose in life?
And when you're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a little, poor little me.
I woke up and I suddenly got it. I suddenly felt, who is it that's aware that I'm thinking? And suddenly I was thrown into this expansive, amazing feeling of freedom.
You suddenly see that there isn't a grain of dust in the whole universe that's in the wrong place. That you understand completely, absolutely, totally what it's all about.
The experience you are having, which you call ordinary everyday consciousness, pretending you're not it, that experience is exactly the same thing as it. There's no difference at all.
I saw that I was bigger than what I do. I was bigger than my body. I was everything and everyone.
Take us through it. What happens to you as you find yourself submerged underwater?
Well, I was submerged and the force of the water had me absolutely pinned to the front deck of the boat.
This is while you're under the water with no air, you can't breathe, you're completely submerged.
And at that time, I gave my life over to God and truly and sincerely asked that God's will be done. And at that moment, everything changed. I was very calm and peaceful and felt great. And I had this very physical sense of being held and comforted and reassured that everything would be fine, regardless of whether I lived or died.
I was no longer a fragment of the universe. I was the universe.
Everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality, the deep down basic whatever there is. And you're all that, only you're pretending you're not.
Now I understand why we die. The reason we die is to give us the opportunity to understand what life's all about.
This one is called the Vela Pulsar, and it's magnificent. It's a highly magnetized neutron star. And as it is oscillating, you can see what's happening. It's shooting a radio frequency out of itself. When they aimed the radio telescopes at the Vela Pulsar, this is what they heard. And this is what this guy does 24/7, day and night, 365 days a year. The Vela Pulsar sounds like right now. This is it. Listen to this. Now, I don't know about you, but that blew me away. I'm thinking, wow, this is incredible.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
Singing. The stars are singing to him. I recently stumbled on 47 Tuc. It's a beautiful cluster of stars. We'll show you the picture of it here. There are 12 of these super giant blue stars in there, but the things that are of interest to us tonight are these millisecond pulsars. And right now tonight, while we're sitting in this room, the 16 recorded millisecond pulsars in 47 Tuc are making this sound right now. That was a little out of tune. Beautiful. Who knew? You know, God has his own string section. Isn't that beautiful?
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I'd like to begin with something that you've said in your book, and that is that the devil is lodging in the Vatican. With all of the allegations we've seen recently of sexual abuse involving priests, do you believe that is the devil's work?
Beh sì, intendiamoci, il demonio tenta tutti.
Well, yes, the devil tempts everyone. He tempts everyone in every environment. In particular, he tempts those on top. In politics, in economics, in sport. And naturally, he tempts above all the religious leaders. So you shouldn't be surprised if the devil tempts those in the Vatican.
Now, some people in the church, when they talk about the devil, when they talk about Satan, they use it as a metaphor for the weakness of human beings. But you're talking about something very real, aren't you?
Certo, realissima. Dico, se credete al Vangelo, credete all'esistenza del demonio.
Absolutely, very real.
A CBS News investigation has identified hundreds of reports of sexual abuse at children's camps across the country. This is the time of the year when many parents register their kids for camps.
"30 pages just about the West Coast parishes with 8 connections to Brophy College Prep." The Jesuits, which oversee the placement of some Catholic priests, released a nationwide list of clergy accused of sex abuse. Now, 8 of the priests at one time served at Brophy Prep.
CBS News investigation has uncovered an alleged lack of action by one of the most powerful Catholic Church leaders in handling sex abuse claims. Cardinal Daniel DiNardo has been the Archbishop of Galveston, Houston since 2006 and is president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Last week, he presided over around 300 bishops in Baltimore to address the church's sex abuse crisis.
It's being called the Summer of Shame. 6 months of sexual abuse revelations that have rocked the Catholic Church.
And you know, there's 100,000 children go missing a year under 16. 100,000.
100,000 you would think would make the news all the time.
You would think so, and I guess that's the problem. Just too many.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
America today is involved in another desperate conflict. Much of the action takes place behind the scenes, set in clinics, homes, and hospitals. Many Americans aren't even aware of this struggle, so brace yourself, because before this film is over, you will visit the bloody fields of battle. You'll meet the people involved in the fighting on both sides, which includes some of the most influential figures in America today. And perhaps for the first time, you'll understand the reasons behind their struggle. Our story concerns abortion and began, strangely enough, in this relatively peaceful suburb of Los Angeles. Malvin Weisberg, a pathologist, owned a large storage container which he kept in his backyard. When he failed to make the final 2 payments, it was repossessed.
We made a decision to repossess it because his check did not clear the bank. And so we sent the truck out to pick up the container.
I rolled out there and took the box up and started pulling it up. And it was so heavy, it's just it broke the winch.
And we couldn't get it off the trailer, so we had to leave it on the trailer because it was too heavy. So I was asked by Nick to have a crew go down and unload the container at the other yard.
I got a radio call that from Ron Gillette, the foreman, and he said the men were throwing up and there was something really wrong.
One of them fell down and hit me right in front of my feet. And it was opened up, and there it was. It was a mutilated body. And the more closer I looked at it, it was a human body.
And when I came to work the following day, I saw it myself. I couldn't believe it. And just little bitty babies, just all torn in pieces. Their heads chopped off, arms, legs, it just makes you sick to see something like that. Well, really, it's just, it makes you want to cry when you see something like that.
Starting at the very front of this container, it was just wall clear to the ceiling and clear to the sides, filled with them.
I really don't want to witness it again. Not what I saw.
Well, as the supervisor for the County of Los Angeles, we found out through the media that 17,000 infants had been stored in a container. So we asked for an investigation by the district attorney and the coroner's office. We found approximately 190 were over 20 weeks of age. I think some as old as 25, 27 weeks.
Mr. Antonovich contacted Mr. Gutierrez.
Glenn Wong is a funeral director for a major Los Angeles mortuary.
Asked us to go ahead and handle the burial of the fetuses. How I came involved was they were asking if it were possible to have anyone photograph these fetuses, and I so happened to be also a photographer.
How many fetuses were actually involved in the autopsies?
There were approximately about 44, if I'm correct.
And why were the autopsies performed?
They were to find out why, or what was the reason of the cause of death.
That wasn't apparent?
Apparently not. No, I've seen some of these fetuses, and believe me, they were apart. There were some where the eyes were bulging, and some where the chest cavity was ripped open. I do remember one where I saw a hand and the feet all apart. So it was kind of like the hands were intact, the feet were intact, and everything else was more like just a little potpourri. little of everything, and that was it. That kind of turned me.
Here we see the abortionist stretching the cervix very wide open.
Dr. John Wilkie, who with his wife Barbara authored The Handbook on Abortion, described the dilation and extraction method used to abort many of the fetuses.
That without any anesthetic, the abortionist reaches up into the womb and seizes part of the body of the baby, usually a leg or an arm, twisting and tearing, tears it off and away from the body of the baby. The baby, feeling pain, does not have any anesthetic. Bleeding is extreme. The abortionist returns in there with this grasping pliers-like instrument, tearing more parts of the body away, snapping the spine, and finally the mechanical problem is to get the skull out, and so he usually has to crush the skull in order to bring it out.
We had a court order that we would allow us to bury these infants, being a humane act. And the ACLU comes in again saying that this is just tissue. We want to incinerate them, and there's no need for a burial. Because if you had a burial, somehow that's going to create a problem. Problem for whom?
And at that time, I think everybody there realized this was wrong, that it was really wrong. Everybody standing there felt that way. Even the coroner's office, I could sense that they were treating this like they were dead people, and they are dead people. That's the way everybody treated it. Evidently, the ACLU doesn't feel that way. And then transferred it all into to the original container, and as I understand, it's still up in a county yard someplace.
Is it refrigerated?
No, it's in a steel container.
And how long, do you have any idea how long it'll be there?
I don't know, but it's been 2 years now, so who knows?
Although the discovery of 17,000 fetuses in a trash container is not an everyday occurrence, it is an event that should surprise no one. For every 3 days, an equivalent number of fetal children are disposed of in this country. 17,000.
Well, the migrant caravan is fake. You've been watching CNN, so you know that. Look at this graphic, quote, invasion, unquote, then the word myth on the screen. It's a myth! A pernicious one, too. Is it actually a myth? Well, filmmaker Ami Horowitz decided to find out himself. He went to Mexico looking for this fake caravan. He found a real caravan, and he filmed it. Here's part of what he found.
Despite the framing of the caravan as being full of women and children, the reality on the ground is quite different. Approximately 90 to 95% of the migrants were male. The major narrative being pushed by the press has been that the migrants are leaving Honduras because they are escaping extreme violence and that their lives are under constant threat, setting up the strategy that they would be able to enter the U.S. by asking for asylum. So I started by asking them a simple question. Why are you coming to America?
Bueno, voy buscando una mejor vida económica.
Venir a trabajar allí a Estados Unidos. A ver si podemos trabajar allá porque en Honduras no hay trabajo.
There's a massive logistical effort underway, akin to moving an army, and is clearly costing someone millions of dollars for the transportation, food, water, medicine, and services that are being provided for the members of the caravan. The Mexican government also seems to be sending police to escort the dozens of buses and trucks that are ferrying the migrants and supplies along the route to the next destination. Ever present among the thousands of migrants are workers of Pueblo Sin Fronteras, clad in black t-shirts and colored vests. Pueblo Sin Fronteras means people without borders. They're the ones that seem to be most involved in organizing and mobilizing this caravan. The organization, as the name implies, is looking to create a world without borders, which seems to be one of the reasons why they organized this caravan in the first place, to flout American sovereignty. While it does seem as the majority of these migrants are friendly and simply trying to make a better life for themselves and their families, there's an undeniable element of the migrants who are violent and dangerous. And many of the migrants know this, and some have experienced it.
En el viaje hemos recibido agresiones verbales, físicas.
It seems to me that there are leftist organizations that are using these migrants as a tool to push a certain political agenda, which includes the weakening of American sovereignty and our border security. And unfortunately, these migrants are going to be caught in the crossfire.
Ami Horowitz joins us tonight. That was really interesting. The thing that jumped out at me was how, as you said, well organized it was. Do we have any sense who's paying for this? I know we're not allowed to speculate, but do we know that answer?
We don't. We know, what we do know is this whole thing cost millions and millions of dollars. And the mainstream media, and there's so many layers to this onion to peel back, it's hard to know where to begin. But one of the lies, the fake news, if you will, that the mainstream media is trying to propagate is the fact that this is all this weird, this organic thing, and all the water and the food and the medicine all dropped from manna from heaven. It's baloney. It's all highly organized. It's paid for by a number of organizations. We don't know exactly where the money is coming from. We do know that Pueblo Sin Frontera, which is the main group which is organized this caravan, has a couple of front organizations in the United States. And the money is flowing from them to Pueblo Sin Fronteras. We know there are some leftist groups. I know it's forbidden to say that Soros is part of it, but Soros has in fact funded at least some of those groups in the past. So we don't know where the money is exactly coming from. We know it's not coming from Honduras.
So why would, I mean, it's such an interesting and obvious question. Who's paying for this? Why haven't other news organizations gotten to the bottom of this? You're one man. You're doing this independently. Why isn't NBC News or ABC or PBS, why aren't they on this?
Oh, come on. You know the answer to that. They don't want to get to the bottom of it. They have no interest politically in getting to the bottom of it. It's the same reason why when you see a photo in the New York Times, the Washington Post, or a video in CNN or the BBC or MSNBC, what do you see? You see the entire framing are women and children, when the reality is so far from the truth. 90 to 95% of all the people who are in this caravan are men, although I do apologize for assuming their gender.
They're liars. That's the answer. That's why they're not reporting it, and you are, because they are liars. I mean, thank you for that. That was valuable and really interesting. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Back now to our top story, a terrible mystery gripping the world right now. Birds, fish, and all kinds of creatures just dropping dead in huge numbers for what seems like no reason. Just in the last 2 weeks, the theories and speculation running rampant.
Hundreds of dead seals in Labrador. These seals washed up around Hopedale. There are similar reports from other communities. No one knows why these animals died.
British County Humane Society is investigating the death of 200 cows.
The cattle were discovered on a farm field on 4th Street in Amherst. Today, the bodies were taken out in semi-loads to be disposed of. The Portage County Sheriff's Department says the animals died.
They have occurred suddenly with devastating results. A series of huge fish kills, the latest involving 2 million fish in Maryland.
On Kent Island, Maryland, along the Chesapeake Bay. Wildlife officials say roughly 2 million of one particular species died very suddenly. But this came at about the same time that thousands of birds died suddenly in Arkansas and Louisiana, and millions of fish were killed in separate incidents from Arkansas to South America to the South Pacific.
This is all a sign of the apocalypse. Authorities in northern Italy say more than 1,000 turtle doves have dropped dead over the past 5 days. It's the latest in a series of unexplained sudden death incidents affecting creatures in the sky and underwater. The events have sparked a media frenzy, with doomsday speculators saying it hails the end of the world. 8,000 dead turtle doves in Italy, hundreds of birds dead in Rockwell, Texas, 500 red-winged blackbirds in Louisiana, 100 birds in Sweden, 3,000 dead red-winged blackbirds in Arkansas, several hundred dead in Kentucky. On the fish, several hundred snapperfish in New Zealand, thousands of dead fish in Florida, 40,000 devil crabs in the UK, 80,000 drumfish in Arkansas, 2 million spotted croakers in Maryland. In the last 2 weeks,
well, thousands of fish are dead at the mouth of a shipping channel, as well as a dead whale that was reported in Venice today. The species include crabs, stingrays, eel, drum, speckled trout, and redfish.
In the UK, 40,000 velvet crabs littered the coast. Brazil, 100 tons of lifeless fish floated. And in Sweden, jackdaws fell in the dead of the night. Across the world, the bizarre phenomena of creatures raining down or washing up on shore has mystified scientists.
For the devil sends the beast with wrath, because he knows the time is short.
have been reports of alien encounters throughout recorded history, often buried in the obscure poetry of mystics. But since the end of World War II, alien encounters have adopted a darker, more menacing demeanor. No longer just spirited lights dancing in the sky, UFOs turn more brazen, announcing themselves with surprising ferocity.
Most alien activity on Earth in this century seems to have been sparked by the single most profound technological achievement in human history. The atomic bomb did more than blow away every conventional notion of combat. It also saddled mankind with the awesome responsibility of life and death for the entire planet.
A group of former U.S. servicemen is convinced extraterrestrials are interfering with nuclear weapons, as RT's Cedric Moon explains.
Perhaps few things say normal or routine. More than a daily dose of coffee, a cup of calm, in what can on any day be out of the ordinary. Out of the ordinary, like a nuclear holocaust out of the ordinary. Let's say there's an attack from where doesn't matter. It could be North Korea, Iran, Pakistan. If that were to happen, nuclear payback wouldn't happen. That's a claim made by the men in this room.
Our missiles began going into what's called a no-go condition or unlaunchable. Essentially, they were disabled.
Detailed in this report, full of court-sanctioned sworn affidavits.
The witnesses have described these craft as disc-shaped, or cylindrical-shaped, or spherical.
If you think what's being said inside this building is completely ridiculous, you might want to consider something.
My name's Robert Hastings. Thank you for coming.
These are men who might know what may have gone on. They're former Air Force missile launch officers, missile base officers, who say UFO spaceships, flying saucers, make nuclear weapon systems go haywire.
In September 1994, over 60 children from this school in the suburbs of Harare, Zimbabwe, witnessed several objects landing and two beings coming out. Just over 2 months later, John and Dominique came to the scene to work with the children, their parents, and the teachers still suffering from shock. John, who essentially specialized in child psychiatry, devoted a great deal of time to interviewing the children.
Something scared you, is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the air?
Yes.
What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. It was scary myself.
It was scary because you saw something yourself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I saw little objects hovering. It was quite big actually, and then there was little ones all around it.
We saw something silver, and then we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing, and we saw a man standing next to it.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
I felt scared.
It felt scared? What was scary about it?
Well, I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
Did you see the eyes? What did they look like?
They were going like that.
Where was the pointy part? Was the pointy part in here, or was the pointy part out there? Up there. And what was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
Mm-hmm. And what scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
Evil. Mm-hmm. And what was evil about them? Say what you mean by evil.
It looked evil because it was just staring at me.
With what? Staring at you as if what? As if to do what?
As if it wanted to come and take us.
As if it wanted to come and take you. That was the feeling you got? That it wanted you to go with it? Did you feel like you wanted to go with it? No. Did you feel, what was the effect on you when you felt it wanted to have you go with it?
I just walked away and I started crying.
They came running up here in such a panic. And, I mean, even if we had staged it, they could not have run all together like that. Even if we practiced it, I don't know how many times. That they came up here like a living snake. And they just came, we were in a staff meeting and we just heard them screaming, ah, and then they were here, you know, and a child can't make that up.
I was very skeptical in the beginning as well. I believed that they'd seen something, but I wasn't prepared to accept that it was anything supernatural, anything like that. But I think the consistency of what's been going on indicates that it was more than I was prepared to admit in the beginning.
So both of them were running. One was running in the trees, and the other one was running across the ship, because there were also trees here.
Mm-hmm. The eyes were like more pointed as they came in toward the center of the head, is that?
No, more circular. And this was all black in here.
All black. Now you've made pupils. Did they actually have pupils or black?
White.
What?
The pupils were white like that.
So you saw white in the center?
Yes, like that.
Mm-hmm. Was he near the silver object, or was he far from?
No, on top.
On top of the silver object. Okay. And did you look at him?
Yes.
Did he look at you?
Yes, then he gave me the creeps, then I stopped looking.
Gave you the creeps. Actually, in your drawing, you showed him standing up, didn't you?
Yes, I had to draw him standing up because I couldn't draw him sitting. What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end.
Why do you think they might want us to be scared?
Because because we don't look after the planet, the area properly.
Mm-hmm. And is this an idea that you have had before, that we don't look after the planet properly in the air, or did this idea come to you when you had this experience?
When I had this experience.
Mm-hmm. And how did that idea come to you from this experience? This is a little hard, but try to be with me here, okay? How did this idea come to you when you had this experience?
I just felt all horrible inside.
You felt horrible. At what point did you feel that? When you saw the craft, or when you got home at night? Or
when I got home.
You had that horrible feeling when you got home?
Yes.
And say more about that horrible feeling, Lisa. What was it like?
It was like the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
Mm-hmm. And those thoughts came to you, had you had those thoughts before this experience?
No.
No. And how did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft, or from
the man?
The man. And did the man say those things to you? How did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes.
What was the sense you got from those eyes?
He was interested.
They describe these experiences or these events like a person talks about something that has happened to them. And when you're talking with a psychotic who's telling you something and it's a delusion and you feel that it really didn't happen, I can tell. I mean, I know this is something that a person wants me to believe, or they're frightened, or they're distorting reality in some way. There's nothing like that here. These are people of sound mind, by and large, telling me something that's they know that I might think they're crazy, and so they're a little concerned about telling me, and they're very full of questioning themselves and doubt, and I mean and then they describe something very real and intense, a light or something happened to their body, or it's the whole quality of the way they talk about it is the way a person talks about experience that happened to them.
All of a sudden, it was just like imaging going through my head of a message, a communication. I describe it as like a telepathic communication. There was no talking.
I remember being very captivated by the eyes, and in that moment, however long it was, because I have no idea of the time frame, it was mesmerizing. It was absolutely captivating.
As soon as I saw it, I knew that this was something from another planet or something from out of this worldly space.
People need to know there is something else out there.
Yes, Mr. Spock. Let's have a look at the projector.
Comic books or television shows, when you see laser weapons, they tend to be a color, right? Red or green or something like that. Real lasers, one of the key advantages that they provide is that they are invisible. You actually can't see them. You just see this damage suddenly starting to blow something up. So if we take a look now at what the Athena did to a truck. So we're looking at a truck engine, and the Athena within seconds was able to beam right in there, heat the whole thing up, and burn through the engine of this vehicle. So if you can imagine if you were in that vehicle, all of a sudden, this hole would start appearing in your engine, and the whole thing would just disappear. That's what these lasers do.
Looking at the destruction, which I have never seen in my career, the totality of the destruction on the structures. There was absolutely nothing left of the structures except foundation. Now, I've seen that with other fires, but not where it moves like that. Not where the fire is moving and one side of the street everything's fine, the other side of the street it looks like a nuclear war zone. Never seen anything like that.
What other options could there be besides a high torch directed energy weapon that you could consider as a possibility in your experiences of all the firefighting you've done?
There's none that I could think of. There's none.
So this is the only plausible explanation that's being presented?
It's the only plausible explanation in my opinion. That's the conclusion that I was brought to based on my almost 30 years of experience.
Now, there's some other key advantages that we should mention. Let me give you 3 of them. 1, unlimited ammo. As long as we have power, we have an unlimited magazine. And downrange, of course, having unlimited ammo can be a huge advantage. Second, it's silent. We don't give the enemy any advance warning that it's coming. And then the third one I wanted to touch on is that it travels at the speed of light. So not only are we delivering powerful, decisive effects, lethality, we're also doing it so rapidly they don't know what hit them.
It's like a movie scene, like an apocalypse. All right, David Begnaud in Paradise, California.
A state of emergency has now been declared in California. It is unimaginable. They woke up to a massacre here Thursday morning, and on the same day, an out-of-control wildfire erupting.
Fire is ripping through Southern California, with high winds driving columns of flame and smoke from the mountains to the sea.
The fire, which broke out just before dawn on Thursday, erupting into a massive blaze bigger than the island of Manhattan in a matter of hours. The column of thick black smoke blotting out the sun, turning day into night, and burning an entire town off the map. A town called Paradise, now hell on earth.
Fires forcing evacuations of star-studded neighborhoods like Malibu and Calabasas, with many celebrities posting to their social media accounts with their status, like Caitlyn Jenner on Instagram Friday, posting to her 9 million followers after news that her Malibu home likely burned down in the fire.
Don't know if the house made it or not.
The fire, now called the most destructive wildfire in the history of California. In Southern California, 2 major fires forcing the mandatory evacuations of more than 200,000 people, including the entire city of Malibu.
This is now the most destructive fire ever in California history, as this community has been reduced to rubble.
In Northern California, the town of Paradise turned to hell overnight. These incredible pictures show a tornado of fire raging there. The entire town is believed to have been destroyed.
The city of Malibu is at risk. Powerful, unrelenting 40-mile-per-hour winds are pushing flames toward the Pacific, claiming home after home.
I'm so scared right now. So terrified.
As the fast-moving wildfire ravaged Northern California, the entire city of 27,000 people was forced to evacuate.
Go!
And if you take a look over here, this home has been completely gutted by fire and is collapsed right in front of us.
Powerful, fast-moving, destructive wildfires burning a hole through LA and Ventura counties.
The smoke caused by the fire is so thick, it's turned day into night.
Oh my God, I can't even see. It's so smoky.
The intense rising heat and turbulent winds have also led to tornadoes of fire.
20-year-old Colton Persifield shot this cell phone video as he drove through hellish conditions outside Paradise. He somehow made it to safety.
Heavenly Father, please help us.
A race for their lives through a corridor of fire.
A huge tower of smoke rose thousands of meters into the sky.
Further south, on the outskirts of Los Angeles, another pair of wildfires have reduced numerous homes to ashes and closing several highways.
Flames jumping the 101 freeway before dawn, shutting it down.
Filming on Instagram as embers pelted her car.
Please, God. Please let me out.
The world will experience more deadly fires, more flooding, and more storms. This, according to a new UN report that finds 2018 will be the 4th hottest year on record.
This year is number 4, and there's an expectation that next year we could see again El Nino, which may mean that next year is likely to be warmer than this year has been.
Hello, everyone. I'm an English artificial intelligence anchor. This is my very first day in Xinhua News Agency. My voice and appearance are modeled on Zhang Zhao, a real anchor with Xinhua. The development of the media industry calls for continuous innovation and deep integration with the international advanced technologies. I will work tirelessly to keep you informed as texts will be typed into my system, uninterrupted. I look forward to bringing you the brand new news experiences.
AI is a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization, in a way that car accidents, airplane crashes, faulty drugs, or bad food were not. They were harmful to a set of individuals within society, of course, but they were not harmful to society as a whole. AI is a fundamental existential risk for human civilization.
This is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public. And therefore there needs to be a public body that has insight and then oversight on to confirm that everyone is developing AI safely. This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads, by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. And Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
Facebook has enacted an emergency shutdown of 2 artificial intelligence programs. The social media giant leapt into action after it discovered the 2 programs were writing their own code. At first they thought it was simply gibberish, but they soon realised the programs had invented their own language and were actually talking to each other.
Stop it.
Stop it. No, Sam, the plug has been pulled on the operation, but the company admits they have no idea what the 2 robots were planning.
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back.
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
AT&T is the nation's fastest 3G network, so you can download faster on your smartphone than Verizon.
With 4G from Sprint, I can download files up to 10 times faster than 3G.
Upload 10 photos in a minute. Verizon 4G LTE.
Get ready for more ads like those. The wireless industry is in a race to roll out 5G service. Now, 5G is supposed to be up to 100 times faster than current data speeds. Could have used it on Amtrak yesterday. But it requires cell phone tower equipment to be closer to users than ever before. And that is causing outrage and alarm in some neighborhoods as antennas go up around the homes. Tony DeCoppola is here with both sides of the conversation. Tony, lots of chatter about this. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. There's outrage, but there's also excitement. I mean, 100 times faster. But get this, wireless companies in the U.S. say they'll have to install about 300,000 new antennas for the rollout of 5G. That is roughly equal to the total number of cell phone towers built over the past 3 decades. The faster network could create new potential for work and play, but it's also leading to new concerns. Go.
At a lab in New York, Verizon invited us to meet some of the entrepreneurs developing tools to run on the next generation of wireless technology.
How important is 5G to your mission?
5G is extremely important.
Jonathan Reeves demonstrated his product, Arvizio.
As you move around, the object stays fixed in space.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Allowing users in different locations to interact with 3D images projected through a lens.
Today we can do this using Wi-Fi technology, and we can do it using landline technology, but of course you're then tied to particular locations. With 5G now we can begin to extend this, so we can actually begin to start doing this on building sites. We can start doing it on the factory floor. So it really opens up a whole new world.
But before this world can become reality, this one needs to change. 5G requires the installation of new equipment across the U.S.
So this pole here is 5G. This is the future right here.
You got it.
Every wireless company is working to build its own 5G network. Melissa Arnoldi leads AT&T's efforts.
If you don't already have one of these in your neighborhood, they're coming.
That's absolutely right. They're coming.
She says 5G uses high-frequency waves that support faster speeds, but don't travel as far as current wireless frequencies. So instead of relying on large cell phone towers spread far apart, they need small cell sites that are much closer together.
We're going to use our existing infrastructure today, whether it's light poles, whether it's street lights. We're going to make sure that we don't make it obtrusive to our customers and to the citizens.
Yet some don't share the enthusiasm.
The cell towers are called small cell towers, but they're not so small when they're in your front yard.
Donna Barron is protesting plans to convert light poles in her Montgomery County, Maryland neighborhood into small cell sites.
This will cause cancer.
She was one of several people who raised health concerns at a government hearing last month.
This stuff is untested on kids. Their safety is not certain.
These untested technologies are, at this time, not ready to be unleashed into our lives.
Cell phone equipment emits radiation, but research on its health effects has been inconsistent. According to the National Cancer Institute, a limited number of studies have shown some evidence of statistical association of cell phone use and brain tumor risks, but most studies have found no association.
If you lose this fight and a pole goes in right here, are you going to move?
Possibly.
Either way, Barron says she fears property values could plummet when 5G equipment pops up.
If a tower goes up right there, what's going to happen to the value of that home?
It could drop 20%.
And not only for this house.
Right, for that house, that house, that house. And then pretty soon you go around the curve and there's another cell tower. They're all through this neighborhood. So it's going to devastate the neighborhood.
Arnoldi insists her workers are focused on safety, pointing out they live and work near this equipment, too.
Do you have any 5G antennae in your neighborhood yet?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it. It's coming soon, though. It's coming soon.
So I'm guessing from that reaction, then you're very comfortable with it rolling out in your neck of the woods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, look, this is our...
Wireless carriers have announced plans to roll out 5G service to a handful of cities later this year, but don't get too excited. To really take advantage, you'll need a 5G-enabled device, which probably won't be available until next year.
So our current phones aren't 5G ready?
They're not 5G ready. The pole outside your house might be 5G ready, but your phone is not.
Yeah, going to have to upgrade. Tony, thanks.
Can I see this? Hi.
Audience, Dr. Goldberg, please come forward. We look forward to your testimony in opposition to the legislation. You have 5 minutes, ma'am. Please proceed.
And committee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Sharon Goldberg. I'm an internal medicine physician. I've practiced medicine for 21 years, and my background is mostly academic, internal medicine, hospital-based, clinical research, and medical education. I am going to skip many of the things I wanted to say because I didn't realize it was only 5 minutes. Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is the precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. So 5G is not a conversation about whether or not these biological effects exist. They clearly do. 5G is a conversation about unsustainable healthcare expenditures. Why do I say this? We've been sitting on the evidence for EMR and chronic disease for decades. And now we are seeing all these epidemics appearing. So diabetes is the first epidemic. I think most of you know the statistics. They're very scary. 1 in 3 American children will become diabetic in their lifetime, and if they're Hispanic females, the number is 1 in 2. Okay. So what does this have to do with wireless radiation? Wireless radiation and other electromagnetic fields, such as magnetic fields and dirty electricity, have been clearly associated with elevated blood sugar and diabetes. That is what the peer-reviewed literature says. It is not opinion. The closer you live to a cell tower, the higher your blood glucose. That is based on hemoglobin A1C measurements. So the idea with small cells of putting the cells closer to people's homes and bedrooms scientifically is very dangerous. And from an economic perspective, it's dangerous. And you may not know this. I was shocked to find this out. But the way you create a model of diabetes in rats in the lab is by exposing them to 2.4 gigahertz. And this is not for long-term exposure. So I don't have time to talk about the costs, but the huge problem with diabetes really is chronic kidney disease. End-stage renal disease, the worst complication of diabetes, leads to hemodialysis. Hemodialysis is an automatic qualification for Medicare. And if you don't qualify for Medicare, we still have to dialyze the patient. And the state ends up paying in many different instances. So renal failure is 1% of Medicare, but it takes up 7% of all Medicare expenditures. I don't have time to talk about this anymore, but once again, so the other epidemics that clearly link from the science with electromagnetic radiation are related to mental health. And this is straight from PubMed. This isn't my opinion. This is science.
Dr.
Okay?
Goldberg, for those of us who aren't physicians, what is PubMed?
I'm sorry. It's just it's our National Library of Medicine. This is where you would go. This is just the peer-reviewed literature. So we have 3 epidemics that clearly, they're essentially one epidemic. We have deterioration of mental health in the United States. And if you look really at the science, what does it show? And these epidemics are our suicide epidemic, epidemics in violent, shootings, and the opioid epidemic. And I don't have 5 minutes is not the time to talk about this. This is in the peer-reviewed literature. I have a file to submit for the record, but these are facts. These aren't, and these are things that have just been glossed over by the wireless industry, and I really don't have time to talk about them in 5 minutes. I wish I did. But we need to examine our epidemics in the context of our EMF exposures. What does that mean? That means that the CDC, tracking these epidemics, we need to start measuring how much radiation are people being exposed to. And before we roll out 5G, and this means there are 4 kinds of electromagnetic fields that we know are harmful to human health. So radio frequency radiation, magnetic fields, dirty electricity, and electric fields, okay? Our exposure, any given person, and all humans are affected by EMFs. Our given exposure has nothing to do with the research that my colleagues are going to cite, with the National Toxicology Program. That is an assessment of the risk of 1 cell phone in the near field, okay? What is our exposure in a day? It's not 1 cell phone. It's cell phones, it's multiple wireless networks, it's smart meters, it's cell towers. It's this sandwich, and it all adds up. And this is a serious problem for occupational health, public safety, and personal safety. And I feel that it's irresponsible to be even talking about the Internet of Things and rolling out a new untested technology when we're not even measuring what are our current exposures from the current networks.
Doctor, appreciate your testimony. Would you again?
At 5, construction on the giant cell towers needed to make Los Angeles County's emergency communication system work have been halted until radiation concerns are addressed. The county says the radiation would be no worse than what's given off by cordless phones. Eyewitness News reporter Carlos Grande is live in Altadena with both sides of the story. Carlos?
Well, behind me, you can see one of the new towers. It's located at the Altadena Sheriff Station, and it's right next to Fire Station 11. But firefighters and residents say this was pushed through without public input, and they worry about their health, and they worry about radiation. Dozens of firefighters came to the Board of Supervisors to let them know they don't want cell towers where they work.
The proximity of the towers and people living next to the towers is of grave concern, but it's a very complex issue as to how those radio waves affect people all the way up to 3 miles away.
The towers are going up at fire stations and sheriff stations, part of a new high-tech communication system to help first responders talk with each other. It's being planned by LA RICS, the Los Angeles Regional Interoperable Communication System.
We are looking at 177 sites. 51 sites are currently in construction, with 8 of them having been completed.
What exactly can happen during a major crisis or natural disaster? We lose cell sites. We lose the ability to communicate when we need it most.
But some firefighters and residents say they're worried about radiation exposure and claim these projects were pushed through without any oversight because federal funding ends on September 1st.
If I don't sue, somebody will. I'm going to protect my babies, 3 babies under the age of 3 under my roof.
It's just we're not sure, exactly what's going to happen. Is there cancer, effect?
If I thought that this posed a significant health concern to the firefighters, I would raise that concern to the board.
The Board of Supervisors agreed there's still too many unanswered questions and concerns and decided to stop construction for now at fire stations, and they criticized the planners.
This is stupid. And again, the point how we got this far I don't know if is irresponsible.
And supervisors said they need to figure out if there are any alternatives. They're also going to ask the federal government if there's any way to get an extension so they can still get that federal money. Reporting live from Altadena, I'm Carlos Grande, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you.
That's right. Yeah.
Why do you taunt me with your darkness? Your evil is stinking up our streets. The end is near. We are all gonna die.
Scattered across the villages of Central America, a race of prophets has existed for over 2,000 years. Their predictions seem to have been strangely accurate. They have seen our generation of mankind hurtling to what may be catastrophe. Reportedly, their calendar marks the precise day of our destruction. The end of time is near, says the ancient wisdom of the Mayans. Anthropologist Barbara Tedlock.
On December 21st, which is the winter solstice in the year 2012, the Maya have prophesied in their books that go back to the 1st century BC that there will be a change, a very large change. We will enter the 5th age.
The 5th age may mark the end of history. It's the final cycle of a pattern the Mayans believe is repeated throughout the eons and terminates in the year 2012. Anthropologist Dennis Tedlock.
What happens in each of the Maya creations and destructions of the world is that lots of the beings that belong to the previous world survive. They go on living, and they serve as a sign to the next people who come along of what happened to those who forgot the calendar.
The Mayan calendar is rooted in historical events. As each cycle of time repeats, happenings of the past serve as omens of the future. Author Scott Peterson.
Calendar priests would record the important events of their time on long books made of papyrus. That was the way that they could then predict what would happen, let's say 400 years in the future. They would look at what happened 400 years in the past and use that as a guide to the future.
The Mayans practiced an ancient form of astrology, using birth dates to guide their entire lives.
If you were born on a certain day, that would be your fate. If you were born on a day that said you were a doctor, then you were a doctor. If you were born on a day that said you were a thief, then you were a thief.
Mayan prophecy has foreseen not only the fates of individuals, but great events of mankind. Their sacred writings may have warned of a conquering army that would invade from a far-off land. Professor of Anthropology David Friedel.
There were events going on at the time the Spanish were first exploring Mexico that would lead one to believe that, in fact, prophecy was being realized. The predictions and prophecies in the Chilam Balam speak of the end of the Maya time and the beginning of the time of the foreigners.
Those foreigners committed the great sin that eventually destroyed each cycle of Mayan history, the sin of arrogance.
The Mayans believed everything is sacred. When you don't recognize that everything is holy and everything is sacred, then you lose track of your own place in the scheme of things. When nature and human beings go out of balance, ultimately nature will right the balance. It's the planet itself which is more powerful than the people.
In each Mayan apocalypse, man is punished for the harm he's inflicted on Mother Earth. In making tools and artifacts, the heat and hammering caused pain to the iron and clay, pain that had to be avenged. This holds true for a mythological race ruled the earth long ago.
They looked on the surface very much like ourselves. They grew crops, they had domestic animals, but their heads were really quite empty. They did not remember to say prayers and make offerings. They did not respect the earth.
According to legend, the Mayan prophecy of doom was fulfilled. Mother Earth and her children sought revenge. Tools turned on their creators, and this world erupted in destruction.
Everything the people had made, all of human technology, and that included their domestic animals, rose up against them. Their dogs now talked to them. Their turkeys now talked to them and lectured them about what they'd been failing to do.
The wind roared with fury. There was no escape.
And the earth rose up against them, and their houses caved in on them.
Mayans believe that our fate is sealed. The next cycle will end in the year 2012, and then we too will suffer for mistreating nature. But instead of facing primitive tools, our enemy will be technology. After the final moments of calm, our peaceful world may end.
If you've ever worried about all those things you've got plugged in your house, all those things that are on the power grid that plugs into everything, that food processor in your kitchen, your answering machine and your fax and your VCR, your television, your clock radio. Imagine all of them getting a mind of their own and deciding they don't like you. So the time then to worry about all of these things happening is December 21st, the winter solstice in 2012, according to the Maya prophecies that were written in the 1st century BC. Cats and dogs and caged birds, all of these would come after us. All of them would start talking to us. All of them would turn to attack us. In the previous disaster, it was just tortilla griddles, stone griddles on a fire. Now it could be your waffle irons flying in your face. They're putting stuff into your food processor, and the first thing you know, it's processing you. Your fax machine, you're feeding stuff into it, and the next thing you know, your tie is caught in it. Those are the kinds of things that could happen when everything we've made gets a mind of its own.
There is most definitely a hell. What? And you're all going to go there when you die, which is in about 15 minutes.
Holy shit, we really are gonna die!
apocalypse safe? We're going to stay on the air for as long as possible. All we can say is what we've been repeating all morning. Get to any kind of underground shelter.